Hey guys, welcome to my legal classes. This is Ganesh Pujari, and in the series of Evidence Act, we were discussing chapter 7, which is all about burden of proof covered between section 101 to 114A. In this series, we have already covered section 101 and 102 in my previous video, and here in this session, I am going to cover the next two important sections which are related to facts covered under section 103 and 104. This is video 2 in this series, and please follow me throughout to understand all the other sections. With that, I am taking you to the first slide. As I said in the introduction, section 103 and 104 are dealing with burden of proof related to a particular fact. Section 103 deals with burden of proof as to particular fact, and the provision says the burden of proof as to any particular fact lies on that person who wishes the court to believe in its existence unless it is provided by any law that the proof of that fact shall lie on any particular person. To make it further simpler, I have my chart below where there is one person by name Mr. X. Here, X wishes the court to believe about an existence of a particular fact. In this case, as X is wishing the court to believe about the existence of such fact, the burden of proving the same is on Mr. X. That's all section 103 says. Saying so, there is one very important exception which says if the law itself is saying that who has to prove, in that case, whatever the law is defining, that person has the burden to prove. If the law is silent, in that case, the person who is wishing the court to believe about the existence of that particular fact has the burden to prove. That's all we need to understand as far as section 103 is concerned. There is one beautiful illustration where we can understand two important things. The first line goes this way: A prosecutes B for theft and wishes the court to believe that B admitted the theft to C. A must prove the admission. Here there are three people, A, B and C. Now A is putting an allegation on Mr. B, saying that B has done theft. Now further A says that B has also admitted that with C. Now here A is putting two allegations. One, B has done a theft. Two, B has admitted that particular fact with C. Here the admission with C by Mr. B shall be proved by Mr. A. That is the first very important thing that we need to understand. The second line says B wishes the court to believe that at the time in question he was elsewhere. Now B says, I was not there in city on the day when theft happened. Now what is he doing? He is basically applying plea of alibi. That means he was absent from the crime scene. Now here B has the responsibility to prove, or B has the burden to prove that he was not there in that particular place where the crime happened on that particular day. Now that needs to be proved by B. That's all about illustration. As far as the case laws are concerned, the first case law that I am discussing here is State of Haryana versus Sher Singh, where it was held that plea of alibi need to be proved by the one who is seeking it. Guys, plea of alibi is a very important concept we have discussed in detail when we discussed section 11, and you can visit my playlist for that particular video. And this is a very important concept which we keep discussing all the time, so you need to be very clear when it comes to the concept of plea of alibi. The second case law, that is Prakash Chandra Sahu versus Managing Director, it was held that the person who is objecting the nationalization of roads has the burden to prove that such purpose is not going to be achieved by doing the same. If someone is objecting nationalization of roads, he has to prove that by nationalizing such roads, it is not going to benefit the nation. That fact needs to be proved by the person who is objecting, which is what held in this particular case law. And with that, I am taking you to section 104. Section 104 discusses about burden of proving fact to be proved to make evidence admissible. Here the provision says the burden of proving any fact necessary to be proved in order to enable any person to give evidence of any other fact is on the person who wishes to give such evidence. Now it looks little confusing. Don't get confused. I have brought it in a very simple English in my below chart. If one fact lies upon another fact, the person who is claiming such facts shall prove the first fact before giving evidence to the second one. That's all we need to understand when we are discussing about 104. I repeat, when one person claims that there is one fact which is lying upon another fact, the person who is claiming such facts shall prove that the first fact is true, and only after that he can give evidence to the second one. Though I think that the chart makes it very clear, to make it further clearer, I will take the help of two beautiful illustrations which are available under section 104. The illustrations are very easy. The first illustration says A wishes to prove a dying declaration by B. Here the first fact that A needs to prove is B's death. Only after proving that B is dead, A can start proving the fact related to his dying declaration. That's how we need to see. So if A wants to prove that B has given a dying declaration, the first thing he has to prove to the court is B is dead. That's what we need to understand from illustration A. The second illustration, A wishes to prove by secondary evidence the contents of a lost document. By now you know what is primary evidence and what are secondary evidence. Primary evidence basically is a original document, and here A wants to prove the content of a primary document by using secondary evidence because he has lost the original document. In this illustration, before even A trying to prove anything related to the contents of the lost documents which are available in secondary evidence, the first thing that he need to prove to the court is he has lost the original document. That becomes first. Only after proving that the original document is lost, the court will see the secondary evidence and the contents of that particular lost document. That's what we need to understand as far as section 104 is concerned. Coming to the last part of the presentation, I am going to discuss a case law as far as section 104 is concerned, that is Mehboob Saab versus Union of India. Here what happened, there was a guy traveling in a train and he fell from the moving train and died. Now the railway was supposed to give compensation to the legal heirs of that particular traveler, but railway declined giving any kind of compensation, saying that he was not a bona fide passenger. That means he has not bought any ticket to travel in that particular train. And the court held that railway has to prove that the deceased was not a bona fide passenger or the deceased was traveling without a ticket. Only after proving that the railway department can decline, otherwise it has the responsibility to make the payment to the legal heirs. That is what held in this particular case law.
Did you see my flip? How was it? It was the result of so many practices. Papa, do you want to add something to this?
Yes, Nishan, I would definitely like to add something to that. We all are lazy to practice, but we want the result to be perfect. But to be perfect, the biggest mantra is practice, practice, and practice. Only when we practice sufficiently, we can expect success. Otherwise, we cannot get the result as perfect as we want.
With that, I'm concluding this session. Please subscribe our channel. Please like, share and comment our videos. Thank you.